We're still on Amud Aleph, but towards the bottom. Amr of Kana. It's 12 lines up, approximately. Towards the end of the line. Amr of Kana. Kana says, Rechav Shachiri Abatim, backyard. In Metalton Bayel Bedal Ramas. The problem with this backyard is that it's not open to the house. So it's a large area that's not surrounded for dwelling. Let me show you the picture. We'll use the pictures a lot here. This. It's little stuff. In the book. See over there that picture? So yeah. That's a backyard, but there's no door.
Huh.
So
it's the door from the outside there.
Yeah, it could be there's a door to the outside, but not from the house. What we're about to learn is that he opens the door. That's going to be our discussion. But he opens it. If he opens it later. So here. It's taking a while to load, so let's see. Okay, when we need it again, it will be there. Rav Nachman. So the first thing was a statement from Rav Kana that because it's very large, and because even though it's enclosed, but a large area that's enclosed that doesn't have the urine in it, that doesn't have a living area in it, it's not considered an enclosure. The explanation for this, when we started learning about this, was that it has to be comparable to an enclosure in the desert, which would have some sort of urine. So we don't have that. However, it comes along Rav Nachman and says, okay, so you broke through the back wall of the house. Now you have an entranceway from the house into the backyard. So Gewaldik, this is his backyard. He uses that door. This is the urine. This is a real urine. So Pesach Matire, the entranceway allows you to now use the backyard. However, that would only apply if first he opens the door and then he puts up the fence, which was not the case before, right? But if the wall was there, the enclosure was there, and then he just breaks through his back wall, the back wall of his house to make a doorway, then that's not going to work. The Gemara says, in other words, the whole enclosure wasn't made for the urine. I'm sorry.
Just for that week, forever, or just for that week? Meaning no, forever, never. According to his opinion, he would never be able to. Meaning he'll have a cut there, but he made the door after, so he'll never be able to metaltal there.
Right. You have to make the mechitza for the urine, so he'll have to reduce a part of the wall. Ideally, invalidate the wall and then redo it. As we were learning a little bit yesterday, you invalidate a little bit and then you patch it up, which ultimately it becomes totally, you get 10 amas there. So that was the statement from, I think from Rabbi Yochanan, said less dein barinish, kegoin dein bar, that you redo it. Yeah, it's considered panim chadashas. Go ahead.
This, in my mind, is so similar to when you're koshering kalim that you've got like undo something and then restart again. You know, like you take a kosher pot, now you got to unkosher the pot, then you can put the unkosher kalim. Now you can kosher those kalim. I mean, there's a lot of analogous messages in here,
For that?
which we can apply to our soul in the month of Elul prior to.
You hear, Professor? The Chassidus there. But what I would compare it to would be if you get a utensil from a non-Jew, along the same lines, Dr. Stein, if you get a utensil from a non-Jew, you have to put it in the mikveh. So sometimes you have a utensil that you can't put it in the mikveh. So what do? So if you take it apart and put it back together, professional, take it apart, put it back there, so it's as if you made it. So it's a utensil made by a Jew. You don't need to put it in the mikveh.
So you change your name from George Foreman Grill to Yitzi Levensberger Grill. Get my picture off, Yitzi.
Okay. So now the Gemara asks, Pasachal b'seifukav pshita. That's obvious. It's if you open the gate and then you make the wall, so of course it's going to be good. It's a regular wall around around an enclosure, around the yard, which should be acceptable if there's a doorway from the house. This Dari. Things are getting complicated here. We don't know if Isbei Dari literally means that there's a pile of grain there. Okay. Now, grain wasn't necessarily diurin. The trees were diurin. If you sow grain in the field, but here what he's doing is he's just putting a pile of grain there. Now, the question is like this. Maybe he made it just for the grain. Now, the avde is a little confusing if it's supposed to be that he made the fence for the grain, which doesn't help anyone, or he made the doorway to get to his grain. But it's not for the urine. It's not because he wants to use his backyard. So Kamash Malanet, no. We don't say that the pile of grain over there ruins the urine. He made a doorway, and the doorway is to use the backyard. Okay, that's case number one. For today, there's a bunch of different cases. Karfif, another case. Yosemi Beisasayim Shukaf Ladira Ben Ismali Maya. I guess you can imagine. But let's try it again. Let's see what we have here. If it loaded. Okay, that was yesterday's, I think. Okay, this was yesterday. We said I said benches, but it really means rows. It's tablois. It's tablois was a bench, but it said it's tablois, which is a row. So yesterday we said if there are rows of trees, then that's acceptable. That's considered urine. Okay, today we were learning. Oh, we went about the shoe yesterday also. Okay, he opened up the door to the backyard. That's what's happening there, and now there's a pile of grain in the backyard. He said, Mao the Tema, that we opened the door to get to the grain, or maybe he made the fence, depends on the Gerson. Kamash Malanat, no, the door and the fence is for the usage of the backyard and ignore the grain. Now he has a large area. Everything is good. The problem is it just got filled with water. Now, when you have an area that you sowed grain in it, then you ruin it. You make it like this is not an area to live in. I'm not sure exactly what the big deal is with the grain. If you put trees there, then it is considered. You don't ruin it. But if you put grain, then you do ruin it. It's not considered hukah fladira anymore. People don't grow grain right next to their house. They grow it out in the field. So let's say it gets filled with water. Is that like growing grain, or is that like planting trees? I mean, the water has possibly usage. It's drinkable. So this is what we're learning here. This is number 84, right? Filled with water. We'll see in the Gemara how this works. So Safar Abanan Lameimar, the rabbis thought to say, that it's similar to grain. Ba'aser. And it's forbidden. That means that it wasn't hukah fladira, it wasn't surrounded, it wasn't enclosed for dwelling purposes. It's just a field, it's not for dwelling purposes. Amalu Rav Abba, it says Achva, Ravua, to Rava, there's a bunch of different precise. They switched the name. So what was said in the name of Rava? Mayim kinitoim damu v'shari. Water is like trees, not like rain. It's permissible. Let's see, we have to see what type of water is. Let's turn the page. On top of Kaf Dalet on the page. Amar Ameimar says, when is it considered like trees? That's if the water is usable. It's drinkable water. Potable. But if it's not fit for drinking, then it's not considered diurin. It's not considered a dwelling area. Amar Ravashi says, it's a little bit of an issue. Ravashi brings up this issue that if the depth of the water is 10 tefachim deep, and then that depth spreads out larger than a beis hasayim, then even if the water was drinkable, that whole area becomes not usable. Then it's asur. That's what Ravashi says. But the Gemara says right away, Valav Milsi. That's not accurate. That's not correct. Why? Similar to Karya de Peri. Now Rashi brings two pshatim for what Karya de Peri. One pshat is that it's a kri. Kri is like a large pile, a heap of fruits. So just because you have a large heap of fruits doesn't mean that you're not. It's not a dwelling area. Put in a lot of fruit before Pesach. Sometimes you get cases of stuff. Okay, you have a lot of stuff. Good. It doesn't mean that it's not a dwelling area. And Rashi's second shot is Akarya the period. It's as if you dug in. It's as if you dug in an area to fill it with fruit. So what? It's filled with water, but the water is drinkable. You don't ruin the urine. See, what Ravashi was saying is that, you're turning it into not a dwelling area because it's so deep and so wide. It's not a dwelling area. He said, no, it's like you have a lot of fruits in there. Let's do the pictures while we're yeah. Okay, it's filled with water. The water needs to be drinkable. Now he says in 86 that if it's a beis hasayim and deep, he's trying to show you the 10 tvachim there. You see that? If it's deep, then it should be asur. The Gemara says, no, it's not asur. It's similar to, he quotes you two pshatim in Rashi. Karya de peri, it's a kri, it's a heap, or it's a karya, it's a dug-in pit, which is filled with fruits. And both of those would be acceptable. I have some taste here. Okay. Ahu rechava have bepum nara. So this Gemara is impossible to learn without the picture. I'll read a line and I'll show you the picture. Okay, there's a large area that's in the city of Kumnara. The Chad Gisa have a pasach lamasa. The Chad Gisa have a pasach l'shvil shel kramim. Shvil shel kramim have a salak l'gudu denara. Setting up. It's like sometimes people ask Shilas and Mezuzah, and they're trying to describe to you where the doorway's going, and they're turning to them. It's like perfectly clear, but they're telling you over the phone. You don't know like what they're talking about. So let's see what this is. This makes it very clear. Right now, ignore that Tzuras of Pesach. I think he's jumping ahead. What happened is there's a rechava. Rechava is a backyard. Notice there's no doorways into the backyard from those houses. It opens up into a mavoi on one side. In the Gemara, it opens up to the city. It means it opens up to a mavoi. On the other side, it opens up to a shvil shel kramim. Now, he added houses into the shvil shel kramim because Rashi says that this shvil shel kramim is a rose of a vineyard, happens to have diurin in it as well. Okay. What we're looking for is a rechava needs to have diurin, needs to be an enclosure for living, for some sort of usage for living. Now, the Mavi has an issue because the Mavi is open at both ends. That's not acceptable. It's open to the Rechava. There's this Rechava like this, it's so large, it's called a Carmelis. It's not considered a Rosh Hashanah. You can't carry there. And because the Mavi is open b'milua, it means there's no door. When you come from the Mavi, you enter straight into the Rechava. So the Mavi is not enclosed on that side. And the same with the Shvil Shel Kramim. The Shvil Shel Kramim opens into the Rechava. It has an issue. Now, if you look at this side, there's Guda Denara. There's the fence of the river. There's the wall of the river. 10 tefachim. So I have a wall here, which is fine. Okay. And it's a little bit unclear what the Gemara wants. Is something changing in the Rechava? Did they open a door and they're trying to now close it off? There's a problem with just closing it off because Rashi says the walls are made from stone and we can't just close it off. It's not easy to close it off. We want to get a simple solution to now be able to use the Mavi, to be able to use the Shvil Shel Kramim, and hopefully even the Rechava as well. So that's our Gemara. We're going to be discussing what possibly could he do to be able to do this. Now remember, when you need an enclosure, you need to enclose it in a way that you actually did something significant halachically, now everything to become permissible. So Amar Abaya. Abaya says about this case, Hechi Navid, what should be done? Which means, how can we get everything permissible that we can use all of those areas? Now, if you look at it from one end to the other, there's a Mavi on one side, and there's a wall on the other side. But the Carmelis in the center is messing everything up. That large Rachva in the center is the problem. So, li'abed la-mechitza guda denara. Let's say we'll add a mechitza to the wall of the sea, of the river. Because that, yes, it's a mechitza, but we'll add another one. We'll add another mechitza there. So, that's doing nothing. You had a mechitza there before you started. In other words, something's switching here in the Rechava, and if I can add a mechitza, the Rechava could now be considered diurim. The Gemara is not telling us how. But I need to make a new mechitza, like we said before, pasach al b'seif hukaf. If you open the door and then you surround it, that's good. But if hukaf al b'seif pasach, if it was surrounded and then you just opened up the door, that doesn't help. So something is changing here in the Rechava. It's going to become considered diurim, but I need to add a wall. Where can I add the wall? So, I can add a wall to the sea, because ultimately we can consider this whole thing one area. Problem is the sea has a wall. It's a mechitza al gabi mechitza. What are you doing over there? The Gemara suggests maybe you can make a tzuras pesach on the entrance from the Rechava into the vineyard. What would that look like? When you look at this picture, you'll see the problem right away as well. So the first suggestion was that fence right next to the seawall. We said you already have a wall. You're just adding in shuls that go from like a modern shul to they become more firm. They add a mechitza. It's a mechitza al gabi mechitza. They extend it. Okay, so here you have a tzuras pesach that's from the Rechava till in the entrance to the Shvil Shel Kramim. Gemara is going to say there's a problem there because the camels that are going to go through are going to want to drink water from the sea. The water would probably be a little bit higher. Are going to knock the thing down. What does it say? Asu Gemal and Shadimla. The camels are going to come and knock it down. Ella Amarabaya liabed lechi apischa de Shvil Shel Kramim. Abaya comes up with a pshat, with a solution. He says, I know this is a stone wall, you can't work with it. That's a stone wall over there, you can't work with it. Put a lechi on the Shvil Shel Kramim. Now, that needs to be significant. Just a lechi that's insignificant isn't going to help us. it needs to be that that's creating some sort of status. Now, what status is it creating? Where is that? Is that a wall for anything? The Gemara says, because the shvil shel kramim was as if it's a mavli. It needs a lechi. And it has the urine there. So a lechi would help. It's open. Well, on one side is a wall. But on the third side, which is this side, it's open. So a third side that's open, in the doorway, you can put a lechi. It's a discussion how wide that is. But let's say the lechi works. So it says the fact that it works for the shvil shel kramim is going to mean nigu. Just as it works for the shvil shel kramim to be an enclosure for that, and we'll consider it a wall also for the rachva. Mahani nami l'rachva. Rashi adds over here, why do you need the nigu? I need to say that just as it works for this, it works for. I just say it works for that. It works for the rachva. Rashi says the rachva never needed any help. The enclosure of the rachva was perfect. Problem was there were no diurim there. It was considered. You see, the shvil shel kramim is paretz b'milua. The road here, the path, opens entirely into this. It needs to be closed a little bit. Over here by the rachva, it really had, any way you turn around, yes, this is an entranceway, but because I had walls on both sides of it, it's not considered paretz b'milua, and I don't need a lechi. It doesn't require anything. It needs the urine. And I'm switching something. Okay, now they put a door there. That's what we were looking for. Looking for that door. Let's see. The artist. So, but it never needed any wall. So we're saying that you're adding a wall that it's not necessary, but it's necessary for the other side of the wall. So the other side of the work, it works. So we'll say it works for this as well. Okay. We say now, whose statement was that? Abai. Amalei Rava. Rava says there's a bit of a problem. People won't necessarily recognize that on one side of that vineyard there was a river, and the river had a wall. They're going to think that you can just put a lechi on a shvil shel kramim that's mefulish on both sides. People are going to think that. Rav is creating a gezerah here, that it's going to look like you can be matir a mavi mefulish, a lechi, a shvil shel kramim mefulish with just one little post along the end. Elam Rav Avdinan lalechi lepischa demasa. Rav says no. You put a lechi on the pischa demasa. I'll show you in the picture what that means. Masa over here means the mavi. Masa means the city. You put it to the entranceway to the city. Miga demahana lechi lemasa, mahana nami lechi lerachba. Picture goes. Instead of the lechi going on this wall here, which was in our last picture, you put the lechi on that wall. Now, this was opened. That side is going to have a tzursa pesach. This side is going to have a lechi. And like we said, that's how you correct the mavi mefulish. You put a lechi on one side, you put a tzursa pesach on one side, and put a lechi on the other side. This lechi is really going to work.
But that tzursa pesach to Rishus Rabim is going to be knocked off by the camels.
Oh, I hear.
I mean, I was waiting to ask. I mean, when they said the camels
Maybe.
have the first one, big spiel, make it a bit taller one. I mean,
Right. My only answer I can give, without having been there, is that maybe the camels are hanging out in the rachba.
But they have to get there somehow, and one way is the river. They're not coming from the river, so the only way is from Rishus Rabim. So that one actually is the more dangerous one.
Right.
Dr. Stein was there. He gave us a first-hand account.
Maybe the camels don't know there's a river there, so they're not going to go in the Pesach. They're going to keep on walking. They came in, the first one was dangerous because they knew there was a river. They could see it perhaps from the Rachma. They would smash that gate. So they don't even
So
look.
new ones aren't coming in.
Right.
I don't know. What do they need camels for if they can't get them out? Camels are for...
I mean, if they're using the logic that a doorway is not going to work because the camels will knock it down, and that's...
I don't know the answer.
One.
I don't know the answer.
Maybe they use small camels to get through the big gate.
And then they grow up. Okay, so we now have a lechi that's a functioning lechi, right? And so therefore, it's going to help for the rachva as well. As we were looking to get a wall that would have halachic significance to redo the rachva, to kosherize it. Now it says like this. A slight issue here. Hilkach. Toltule b'masa gufa shari. In the mava you can carry. Why? It's easy. It's a tzirsa pesach and a lechi. It's closed up. Toltule b'rachva gufa shari. You can carry in the rachva. Why? Because you added a significant wall after the doorway opened. Mimasa l'rachva m'rachva l'masa. Pligi b'ravacha v'ravina. Can you carry from one to the other? Do you need an Eruv? Is it considered that the shvil shel kramim, which has the urine in it, is considered the same rishus? And you didn't make an Eruv with them. You have to make an Eruv with them if you want to be able to carry all joined together. So it's a machlekes Rav Acha and Ravina if it's considered the same rishus. Chad aser v'chad shari. One says that it's aser, and one says that it's mutter. Man de shari, one that says that it's mutter on top of kafei. He says the leka the urine. Look, the rachva doesn't have the urine. No one's living there. It's a bit of a problem. I thought there was the urine there. How did you make it kosher? I'm not sure how that works. I thought the idea here was that they opened it up. Manda aser zimin dava b'dirim vasel tzoltzule. The one that aser says that no, could be they'll create the urim here. They'll open up a wall, a doorway, and they'll create the urine, and then you'll think that it's permissible to carry all together, and it's going to be a problem. From this Gemara here, it's sending me back to what was going on the whole time. How are we going to permit the rachva if there's no urine there? It had to be the urine. Otherwise, it was a basis sayim that was too large. I was saying there's no urine. I don't know if you have any notes there. I have a Gemara here with notes that didn't comment on that. I'm asking a very basic question on the comprehension of this Gemara. What was the story? What was the Gemara trying to do? To kosherize the rachva. And as we were learning that an entranceway was opened based on the previous Gemaras, that's what it was looking like. And then you wanted to add a wall, but no wall would be significant. So we had to get some sort of wall that's significant for the outside to be, and then work for the inside. Now we're saying, what about the Eruv? Is this considered one rishus or two rishus? Can you carry from the mavai to the rachva? I said, well, there's no deer in there. He says, Rashi on the top says, don't worry about the shvil. I know there's deer in the shvil, but that's like a chatzar katana, and if it's a legdaila, and it for some reason that's not going to be a problem. Okay, let's go further. Can't answer everything. We have two questions. We have Moshe's question with the camels. How do the camels get in the Tzuras of Pesach? And then you have this general question of how is this working with the diurim. Okay, karfif yesim rebesa saim shlehukav ladira. Another case. You have a large area. It's a karfif. Karfif means a storage wood. It's enclosed, very large, more than 5,000 square amas. Yesim besa saim shlehukav ladira has all the problems. And you want to fix it up. You want to be able to carry in there. Bolamaite, you want to diminish the size. Well, apparently it's right above the base of Sayim. They got the measuring people to come. It's exactly 5,000 square amas. Or that other sheet, 4,984 point something. So how can you diminish it? You want to do this easy. So it says, Mia to be lanis. Let's say you plant a tree in it. You plant a tree, it's going to take away from the usage, from the open area. It's going to close off like a few amas over there because of the tree. It says layavimiyat, that doesn't count. Because you don't diminish the size of the area because it has trees in it. Okay, so let's say you make a little structure, a little pillar inside. So if it's kavaya asara brachav daled, if this pillar becomes a separate rishus, something significant, it's wide 4 by 4 tvachim, and it's 10 tvachim high. So then havimiyat, you've now diminished the size of the karfeif, and it could be that at this point it's not a base assignment. It's not 5,000 square amas anymore. Very nice. Let's say pachas migimel. Let's say you built this amud, but it's very thin. It's not. It's a small pillar, but it's not 3 tefachim wide. Le'avimiyat. Doesn't do anything. Rashi says, command the lesser. It's like it doesn't exist. Migimel va'adalet. Let's say it's 3 tefachim, but it's not 4 tefachim. So it doesn't have, you see, gimel tefachim has a significance because 3 tefachim is lavud. It makes things like solid. It has a significance. Dalet tefachim has a significance. It makes its own rishus. Less than gimel is nothing. More than dalet is something. What about in between 3 and 4? So that is a machlekes Rabba and Rava. Rabba amar havimiyat, Rava amar lo havimiyat. Rabba says that it diminishes because it's 3 tvachim. We'll see in a moment. And Rava says no, it's not 4 tvachim.
Oh,
Rabba amar.
What's wrong with having it 4?
If it is 4, then it's perfect.
Oh,
but if it's not 4, then it's a machlekes. So Rabba amar havimiyat. Rabba says once it's 3 tvachim, it's good enough. It diminishes the area. The nafak lamiteris lavud. Now, I'm not using the halacha of lavud here. I'm just using a pillar that happens to be 3 tvachim, and I'm claiming that it's significant. Because if it would be lavud, din of lavud, it would already be bigger than lavud, so it's significant. I'm just looking at significance. I'm not actually using the din of lavud. Rav amar lo havimiyat, Rav says it's nothing. If it's not 4 tvachim, then it's insignificant. Okay. Now we're getting into a discussion about if you can make a mechitza on top of a mechitza and consider it significant. So before we spoke about there's a drop in the seawall and it's considered a mechitza, and then you're trying to make another fence above it and say, it's another mechitza. We said, no, that doesn't work. Here you're making a double wall. Maybe they could do this sometimes for security. You do a double wall, and ships could be. So here you're making a double wall. So it says like this: if the second wall is 4 tvachim away from the first wall, so that's going to work. Let's say you made the new wall less than 3 tvachim. This they would do for insulation, maybe for cold or for heat. The air between would be insulation. That's not going to work. Gimel v'adalet. Let's say it's in between 3 and 4. We had this before. We're familiar with this issue. Rabba Amarayel. Rabba says that it works because 3 is already significant. And Rav Amrein Amayel, Rabba says that it doesn't work. As you put a fence so close to the previous fence that it's not considered anything. Rabbi says it works. Rabbi says no, it's not a makam daled. It's not 4x4. It's not an area of 4 tefachim. It's not distant 4 tefachim from the previous wall. So what do you do with the area in between? It's nothing. It's not considered like you have a new fence. You already had a fence. Rav Simi masni lakula. Rav Simi taught this lakula. And there's supposed to be a period there in my old Gemara. There isn't. But that's the end of that Gemara. And what he means is that he believes, Rav Simi learned this machlekes, that everyone holds in between 3 and 4, it's acceptable. The machlekes was if it's less than 3. Where over there, Rabba says it works and Rabba says it doesn't work. That's how he learned this Gemara. Okay. Tach by tit. This is so close to being to a base of Sayim. It's so close that if I even put a plaster on the wall, I'll diminish the area enough that it won't be a base of Sayim. Yeah, they measured this, and they could get it under a base of Sayim if they put plaster on the wall. So the Gemara says like this: if that plaster could hold on its own, then it's significant. If it can't hold on its own, now we have a machlekes. Rabba says nevertheless it's measured. It doesn't measure up to base of sign. Rabba says that it's not considered a diminishing. It's not considered significant. Rabba says, fact is, it's standing. It is significant. I know I'm supporting it by the wall. But the fact is it falling down? No. So it's significant. Rabba says, no, you didn't do anything. Can't stand there. Every time you put up a picture frame or something, you're going to say that now the wall is smaller. That's, I think when they measure houses, I think certain appliances, maybe like air conditioning units or something, that doesn't get measured with the living area of the house. I think a washer and dryer probably doesn't take up the space. The house is still larger, even though you can't use that area. But okay.
Question.
I'm sorry.
Question. I understand just putting plaster on the wall is like just existing on the wall, doesn't stand by itself. If you look at the picture I just put up where they entirely plastered the wall, that becomes solid, even though it's attached. Technically, if one were able to separate it, let's say water leaked in between, you would have a very thin but standing plaster wall off the cement wall. So, right. I mean, I think that was the question.
No, you're right. That's exactly what the Gemara said. If it would be able to stand on its own, then that would be acceptable. That would be considered the wall. If it can't stand on its own, then the Gemara doesn't consider that really a wall. Yerchek menatel. Okay, I need a picture again. Picture. We spoke about this before, about using a tel. He's showing you the plaster there at this time. It's putting tit, that's the plaster on the wall. That's the tit that can't stand. That's the tit that, the plaster that could stand on its own. See the thickness of it? That's what he wants to show you. There's a little bit of a mound over here. So what he's doing is, there's already a wall there. There's a wall on all 4 sides. Problem is the wall on this side is a mound, is a tail. So he's going up the tail. He's extending it further, and he's making a fence up there, up the mound. So vasa hirchik min hatel dalet vasa mechitza. Hayil, it works. Pachis mi gimel. But if you do it over here, very close to the tail, close to the mound.
On the tail.
Oh yeah, svasa tail. Oh, right on the top. This is really on svasa tail. I'm sorry, Professor.
Yeah, I got it.
If it's on the top, this is a machlekes. Machlekes between Rav Chisda and Rav Hamnuna. Rav Chisda, Rav Hamnuna. It's a machlekes. Chad amar hayel, v'chad amar lai hayel. One says that it works. The other one says that it doesn't work. Now, this is a bit of a problem. Before we said it's a mechitza, el kame mechitza, we had the wall of the it is a problem. It is a problem. It's machlekes. Stayim, let it be settled to Rav Chisda Amar Haya. Let's prove that Rav Chisda is the one that says that it works. Mechitza al gabi mechitza. The Itmar says, "Aisa mechitza al gabi mechitza." If someone makes a fence on top of another fence, Amar Rav Chisda b'Shabbos Haya. Rav Chisda says that it works for Shabbos. B'nechsi ager like kana. But it doesn't work to make an acquisition into a property of a convert. What happens is if a convert dies without relatives. The reason why we use that example of a convert is because every Jewish person would have a relative, even if no one in his family is alive. So you say, well, his grandfather was Yaakov Avinu, and Yaakov Avinu has other children, so someone's going to show up. But a convert is not considered that his relatives, his non-Jewish relatives, aren't relatives, and he doesn't have Jewish relatives. So possibly. So that would be a case where anyone could come and make acquisition in this. What's considered an acquisition? You see, if it would be a purchase field, then someone would be giving it to you. There would be a kinyan. How do you make a field? How do you do it? Well, you have to do a chazaka in the field. We're looking for something that's hefker. If it would be a purchase, there would be someone there that's selling it. Here, this person's showing up at the field. He says, oh, the fellow passed away. And let me make a kinyan in it. So he puts up a fence. That's a good kinyan. The problem is there was a fence there already. So someone else shows up and digs in it. That's also a kinyan. The second guy is going to acquire it. Because the first guy, although he put up a fence, but the fence wasn't necessary, and unnecessary fence isn't a kinyan. So, but Reb Chisda says that on Shabbos, for Hilchas Shabbos, that's considered a fence. For Nechsi Ager, it doesn't work. So it must be that Reb Chisda is the one that said that it works for Shabbos. But Rav Sheshes Amar Af b'Shabbos Nami Lahel, Rav Sheshes says it doesn't work for Shabbos either. Tistayim, the Gemara says excellent. Let it be settled that it works. Amar Rav Chisda. Chisda says, Maidali Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes admits that if you make the mechitza directly on top of the tel, shahayel, that it should work. My time mahayel ubavir mechitza al yenisudar. Let's see the picture. I didn't understand it like that. I'm not sure why. It apparently, if the whole thing is raised, then the lower mechitzas doesn't work, and I'm not sure why. I don't know if anyone has any notes there. Why would the lower mechitzas not work and the mechitza elyoina works? Only as new mechitza works.
You've raised the ante. You've raised the ante. I mean, now there's a new standard, a baseline.
But is it a halachic mechitza or is it a functioning mechitza? What is the
Malin b'kedusha v'ein yorgin? No, once
we were saying that's not significant enough. the basis doesn't hold that mechitza al gam mechitza works. My time, mahil mechitza al yenis adar. It must be a non-halachic mechitza. That's what he's saying, like Dr. Stein is saying. That the fact is, he wants to be surrounded. So over there, because the mechitzas have the function of mechitzas, so it's still considered a mechitza, even though it's a mechitza al gabi mechitza. That must be what he's saying. I don't see a different shot.
It's a gartel made out of cement.
Yeah. Now it says, Boy Rabba Bar Chana. Rabba Bar Chana has an interesting question. You put a fence up, but the fence was not significant. Why? Because it was a fence on a fence. Mechitza gabi mechitza, according to those opinions, that doesn't work. So what happened was the lower mechitza, that was the one that was taking over your mechitza, that your mechitza was nothing. Why? Because there was one that was there already, starts to sink into the ground. And over the years, your mechitza becomes the one that's the only mechitza left. What happens now? Lamai, the Gemara asks, what are you asking? Do you want to say that you should now acquire the field of the convert that you put up? You put up a fence that didn't work, and now you should acquire it because the fence sunk into the ground, into quicksand, and now you're left with the mechitza. That's Yirmiyah Bira. That's what Yirmiyah Bira said. What did he say? Yirmiyah Bira, Amar Rav Yehuda, Haiman Deshad Lifta Apila Da'ara de Ger, Os Yisrael Achrina Rafik Paporta, Basrakani Kamalekani. He said like this: if there's a little groove in the ground, and there was a convert that owned this field and he died and he doesn't have any relatives, and now you came by and you threw a pumpkin into this little groove in the ground, and the seeds of the pumpkin are going to sprout and it's going to grow. But that's going to take some time. It's going to need to decay and all of that. Another fellow comes along and makes a little scratch in the ground, a little groove, a little plow. He acquires it. You didn't acquire it. Why not? You planted some pumpkins. My timer. When you threw it in, the pumpkin into that area, nothing was improved. It didn't rot yet, it didn't sprout. And when it does improve, when you make, to make an acquisition, you have to do an improvement to the land. When does it improve? That's happening on its own. Your action didn't see any results. There are results, but that's like happening on its own. Okay, Ve'elalin Shabbos. The shaila over here must be regarding Shabbos. We're talking about the walls that sink into the ground and you left your walls there. When it came to a kinyan, it didn't work. Okay, so having mechitza nasis b'Shabbos, that for sure works. We said mechitza that nasis b'Shabbos works. Betanya was started in a brisa. Call mechitza nasis b'Shabbos, any mechitza that's made on Shabbos, bein b'shegig, bein mezid, shmei mechitza. We said that it works, so it's good. What's the shaila? We have a brisa. It says, Lavit Maralam, Rav Nachman Leishanu Elizak Avil Taltalasi. We said, Rav Nachman says it really doesn't work. Mechitza nasis b'Shabbos makes it only permissible, only adds a chumrah, that if someone from the outside would throw something in, then it would be considered from Rishus Harabim to Rishus Yachid. But in that area itself, you still can't carry. See, when I was reading the Gemara at the beginning, it sunk into the ground on Shabbos, and it became a mechitza on Shabbos. I didn't take it like that. I just thought that you didn't do anything to make it a mechitza. You set up a mechitza that was useless. And now it sinks into the ground and becomes functioning. But now the Gemara is looking at it like, 1 second, it's a mechitza that's happening on Shabbos. The Gemara says, well, that statement of Rav Nachman, Kitmud Rav Nachman Amesid Itma, that's only a Gzeira, because if you did it on purpose, it's a problem. It's of the Mechitza al Gabi Mechitza. There was a woman that did this. She made a Mechitza on top of a Mechitza. B'nechse Hager. It was in a property of a convert, and she wanted to acquire it. Asahu Gava Rafik Bapurta. Well, this fellow comes along and does a little plowing. Now, Asalakami de Rav Nachman, they come to Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman was a dayan in Nardar, right? Ukma biyadei, he put it into his hand, biyadei. The Aramaic yud hey at the end means him, as opposed to biyada, I mean her. So put it into his hand. He acquired it. The fellow that did the small amount of plowing, not the woman that put up this whole fence. So the woman comes to Rav Nachman, she's screaming, Amalah. So Rav Nachman responded, what did I do to you? You didn't make a chazaka the way you're supposed to make a chazaka. I would have liked to help you, but you didn't do it right. So the other person acquired it because even though he hardly did the work that this woman did, but the fact is, what he did was more functional than what she did because there was a mechitza that was there already. Let's leave it over here.